What is going on, everybody? We're here. We're live. Another month has already gone by, slipped away from us. And it is once again the last Sunday of the month. Now, I mean, pretty early to have the last Sunday of the month. Nevertheless, we're here. And it happens to coincide with what I felt, at least, was the perfect day to do this stream, which is May 25th. May 25th, actually Star Wars Day. Now, May the 4th, we've seen that embraced basically ever since Disney bought the company and by, fans everywhere about celebrating Star Wars. But at least for me and a lot of other people, May 25th is always going to be Star Wars Day. I mean, it was officially declared a holiday, I think, in LA and a couple other towns and places in California and stuff like that, because it was the day, 1977, May 25th, Star Wars releases in theaters. And that seems to have lost a little bit of meaning, I suppose, in modern day Disney Star Wars. Nevertheless, I thought it was a good opportunity to talk about some of our favorite parts of Star Wars, games, books, movies, whatever. I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity. And we'll see. We've got a couple people that are popping in. As you guys know, it's not just me talking on these streams. It's people that are my top tier supporters and channel members and everything like that. And we do have a couple of them here to be able to talk to you guys today. So thanks for showing up. Might as well get right into it. The man who's been a member on this channel for, member on my main channel for over 5 years now. And here on this channel, it's Biggles. What's up, Biggles?
What's up, Ryan? Yeah, I'm here. For some reason, I thought I was going to be next week. And I was going to be like, shit, I missed another Ryan stream because I'm on a plane. But luckily, it's this week, and I get to hang out with you for however long we do this.
It's this week, and luckily, because it was just me and Biggles in here before the stream, and we're thinking, man, Biggles isn't even that big of a Star Wars fan, so I guess it's just going to be me talking. But we do have a couple other people that have showed up. We got Lore Master Chris. What's up, man?
What's up, Ryan? And before we even get into the Star Wars talk, I just want to say thank you, Ryan, for recommending Cobra Kai, because I finished the series just last week, and the ending was, in fact, perfect. Just what a great show.
It is. It's hard for shows to land it, to stick it, but I think it 100% did. Leaves you just feeling fucking awesome going away from it.
Yeah, it's one of those, classic F yeah! And
yes.
It constantly leads you into directions where you're not really sure where it's going to go, but then when it actually happens, you just think, man, that makes all the sense in the world.
100%. And yes, when Thunderstruck plays and Johnny walks out there, you are like, fuck yes, baby. That was my biggest hype moment of the series, no doubt.
Oh, it was awesome.
And we've also got, we've also got CJ. What's up, CJ?
Hey, how's it going? It's nice talking about Cobra Kai, a show that respects the source material and what came before it, and it's a good, worthy spinoff. And now going from that and talking about Star Wars. Let's go.
Yeah. And yes, I figured that today we could talk about, look, we've been talking for fucking 13 goddamn years about what Disney's done to Star Wars and all this stuff. So I figured today we could talk about things that we like from Star Wars, and whether it's whether it's games that we've played, whether it's books that we've read, storylines, things you would have wanted to see in the Star Wars expanded universe, movie experiences when you saw it. I thought we could take today on Star Wars Day and celebrate that. So, which I think will be fun. Somebody who unfortunately looks like won't be here. Happy real Star Wars Day, Ryan, says Star Wars Marvel Purist. Anniversary day, not only for Star Wars, but for me and Mrs. Purist. Should be back next month. Thanks, Ryan, for always putting it down for George Lucas Star Wars. Well, I'm sorry we'll miss you, Star Wars Marvel Purist. I thought this would be the perfect day for you to be on, but that's all right. We'll get back to it next month. So as I said, we do this every month. If it's your first time here, well, welcome. We do this every month. The last Sunday of the month. Sometimes that flips around because, I might be traveling, there might be something going on or whatever, but usually we try to aim for the last Sunday of every month, and it's the last Sunday of May. And it's May 25th, Star Wars Day. The day that Star Wars was released in theaters in 1977, a day that I feel like used to have a lot of meaning. Maybe not so much meaning anymore, but at least not when it comes to Disney. They celebrate on May the 4th, which I think is more of a meme. And like, I think anytime people want to celebrate Star Wars is great, you know? But for me, I think May 25th has a little bit more meaning. Biggles, you're a huge Star Wars fan.
I mean,
right?
I used to be. I saw The Last Jedi and I wiped all Star Wars memories basically out of my memory. And I was like, nope, I don't want anything to do with this. People tell me, what's the last one called?
Andor?
No, the last
Rise of
movie.
Skywalker?
Yeah, people tell me that's the worst Star Wars movie ever. I haven't seen it, so to me, it's The Last Jedi. But yeah, so basically how I got introduced to Star Wars is I had this friend when we were little. He bought lightsabers, and I was like, oh, these are cool. What are they? They're like lightsabers. They're from Star Wars. And this is right before Phantom Menace came out, right? And I was like, what's Star Wars? And he's like, you don't know what Star Wars is? I was like, no. And he's like, all right. So he gets all the movies and he's like, we're going to watch this, but we have tickets to go see the Phantom Menace. So we went and saw the first episode, or episode 1, Phantom Menace. And I thought pod racing was like the coolest thing ever. I know people like talk shit about it, but I thought it was like the coolest thing ever.
Pod racing.
This is pod racing.
And then then we went back to his house and watched 4, 5, and 6. So A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And I was like, can we watch Empire Strikes Back again? So we went back and I think we watched that like 3 times. And then I don't know how much longer it was later, but Jedi Power Battles came out. And I showed you the old picture I had like the last time I was on here, how I had the poster on my wall.
Yeah.
I played that game probably all day that I wasn't in school for like 3 months straight, just playing it over and over again. And that's really what made me like Star Wars, was Jedi Power Battles. And I know they made like a new remastered version of it, but I'm afraid to play it, because I don't know if it will be as good as I remember. But yeah, I used to love Star Wars, and now I despise it. And I come on here, and you guys are all talking Star Wars, and I'm just like, like shutting up, don't say anything. And then I make my joke that Order 66 is how many Jedis they left. And then Lore Master Chris here stole my joke one time. I was very upset. He used my joke.
What did I steal?
The Order 66 is how many Jedis they left what? How many they left?
Remember that.
Yeah, you stole my joke.
I remember one meme I used of like a bunch of Jedi in a cafeteria, and the waiter goes, "Who ordered 66?"
That's funny. I like that. But yeah, so that would be the only thing I'd say about Star Wars every time I was on your show was execute Order 66 was leave only 66 Jedis alive, because more and more Jedis just keep surviving it, So it basically ruins everything. And I'm like, whatever. I don't care about this franchise anymore. I'll just make jokes about it.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of so many Order 66 survivors. Or Master Chris, what about you? When did you first get into Star Wars?
Honestly, I don't remember, because it feels like Star Wars has just been in my life ever since I was born. Because
you were born into it.
Yeah, I was born into it because both my parents were like big fans of it. They grew up with the original trilogy. I grew up with the prequels, and I just remember they showed me the original, actually not the original, the 1997 special editions of the original trilogy. And for whatever reason, I just remember being so in awe of these movies and just how they looked, the epicness of it. It felt like something I had never seen before, because quite frankly, I hadn't seen a lot of movies, but it does speak to the longevity of them that I still talk about them to this day, even though I've watched so many movies since then. And as a result, not only did I watch the movies, I also started playing the games. I started reading the comic books. I was a big fan of the Republic comics from the Dark Horse era. And one day my dad said, "Hey, son, I know you are a really big fan of these Star Wars movies. I got something for you." And he gave me a copy of Young Jedi Knights, the book series. It was specifically Lightsabers, Darkest Night, and Jedi Under Siege. And when I read that, I was thinking, man, this is just like, I know the story ends with Return of the Jedi, but if it was ever to continue, this would be perfect, a perfect continuation. And we all know how that turned out. So, and yeah, I've just been a fan of it ever since. And Biggles mentioned that it was Last Jedi that killed his love for Star Wars. For me, it was in many ways The Force Awakens. Because when I first saw that movie in theaters, I was like almost trying to convince myself to like it. Because I'm like, yeah, I like it, but there's also this moment and this moment. And then the third time I watched it on Blu-ray, I hated it. I was just like, get this shit out of my house. And when Last Jedi came out and everyone hated it, it was almost like a sense of vindication for me. Because anytime I tried to explain why The Force Awakens was bad, they would go, "Oh, don't worry. The Last Jedi will explain anything." Oh, really? How did that turn out? It turns out Rey's parents were nobody. Snoke was just some guy in a gold robe, like straight out of an Austin Powers movie, and he gets cut in half. So how did that turn out?
Yeah, not much was explained. Also, welcome to the stream, Borsk Failure, which is a great fucking name, by the way. John Getz, I love that.
On Purists, I did the whole shtick where I was like, Borsk Failure, this war would have been done day one if I had been the Chancellor. We should have stopped them at Helska 4. They should have never come in. They should have been stopped in the Outer Rim, and now billions and billions of people are dead.
No wonder so many Bothans died.
It's actually crazy because Borsk Failure is like one of the most annoying, fucking irritating characters. Like, just an antagonist who's technically on our side, but he's always such a fucking pain in the ass.
Politician.
But, and you're not to this yet in NJO, there's a really cool turnaround in his story. So,
yeah.
I won't let you know. But
Borsk is a lot like the council from Mass Effect. They're people who are on our side, but they're insanely annoying, and you just want to like turn off the channel when they're on.
It's so funny. Yeah. I didn't play Mass Effect 1 until they did like the trilogy remaster, because I was always PlayStation, so they started with 2 and you just played like a graphic novel to make the choices. So like playing that HD like trilogy, and you can just hang up on them as the renegade option all the time. They're like 3 big politicians. I don't know if you played these, Ryan, but like there are 3 politicians from like these 3 different alien species, and they're like in the central government of the galaxy. And they'll start going like, "Oh, you're a rogue, Shepard. You can't do these sort of things. You have to check in with us more often." Then he'll just be like, "I think this line of communication is getting a little unsteady. Don't you think so, Joker?" He's like, "Yes, sir." And he just hangs up on them all the time.
It's like we lost the signal, Joker.
They just get more pissed off as the game goes on if you do it like every time.
Don't cut us like last time.
CJ, what about yourself? Do you remember when you first got into Star Wars or cared about Star Wars?
I would say for me, it would be when the special editions came out in the theaters in the late 90s. That was the first time I watched it, and then I watched I liked it so much I watched the originals from the 70s and 80s as well. I got into Shadows of the Empire. I'm like, oh my goodness, Star Wars is awesome. I have to get whatever Star Wars toys game is available. I started playing Shadows of the Empire with Dash Rendar, and then I read the book after that from Perry. That was amazing. And then from there I was like, man, these books are great too. So that's when I got into the Thrawn trilogy, Jedi Academy, the Corellian trilogy after that as well too. I'm like, holy crap, there's so many good stuff. And then on and on. I stopped for a little while, and then I was really excited. I'm like, oh wow, Disney just bought Star Wars. That's great. They did a good job with whatever, the Iron Man and the first Avengers movie. I'm sure this is going to be really awesome. And then I started watching the movies. I'm like, dude, what is going on here? This is not very good. We got to the Last Jedi, and yeah, I was like, I'm out. This ain't for me. This is no good. And then I'm like, was it always bad? Did I just have nostalgia? And then I started reading the books again. I started, going chronologically. I started, from, True Set Before, right after Return of the Jedi, and started kind of going from there. I'm like, and then I got to the Unifying Force. I'm like, yeah, this is way, way, way better. So yeah, I mean, it's just an awesome franchise, and yeah, the Disney stuff, I've kind of wiped it, from my mind. I know there are people who are, fans of, parts of it here and there, like whether it be, The Force Awakens or Rogue One or Andor. For me, it's just I can't really, get attached to that stuff at all anymore. It's the same with, when Harry Potter, the new show, they cast, Black Snape. It automatically, even if it's good, it automatically, just, it's a turnoff. It's already, you're already starting on the wrong foot with me. So, so it's really just the EU, OT, PT, and the games for me.
Hey, CJ, I think I actually might have found a casting choice that was worse than Black Snape.
Oh, yeah?
Meryl Streep as Aslan.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, wild. That pissed me off so badly. Let's cast the woman who once called Harvey Weinstein God to play an allegory for God.
It's like, and I don't think we've heard anything official from that. Like from the company themselves saying, hey, we've cast these people, but it's similar to report to what we got about Snape before we officially heard that, right? So it's like, Jesus. Literally Jesus.
Jesus lying. Was the Rogue Squadron game on N64, did that have like some post ROTJ missions or something? I don't know if anybody played that. I played it at my friend's house on N64, because if it does, then that would be my first experience with the EU. So I played that way back in the 90s.
So even whether it's post or like whatever, because they're still telling like new stories that fit within the timeline. So it 100% counts. Yeah.
Kind of like in the episode 1 game when Obi-Wan slaughters all those Gungans. That's just an untold part of the story. Jar Jar got thrown in jail, and Obi-Wan was like, well, women and children, time to predate Anakin in this. All right, let's go.
Go home now.
Is there a mission in that where you save Riken, I think? Don't you?
Trying to remember, because the level that I was stuck on forever was Tatooine, where you also slaughter a bunch of Tuskens before Anakin ever does it as Qui-Gon. And once I got through that, I'm trying to remember, because it goes like the ship, then the Gungan village, then you're stuck on Tatooine. Trying to remember when he would have come in, but I don't. I just remember Maul was like freaking impossible as well. But
dude, games used to be so hard back then. It took me forever to beat like Dark Forces, 1 and 2. I just kept getting lost. I didn't know where to go. Same with Jedi Outcast. Well, man, I was like, where the hell do I go? And now games nowadays, they have like a map. There's a radar. There's like a yellow dot. Yeah, just go over there. Okay, sweet.
Yeah, if you ever play BioShock, you just press down on the D-pad, and there's a little arrow on the ground saying, go there.
So Monster Hunter Wild, if you click up on the D-pad, it will, and you're on the mount, it will walk you to wherever you need to go. You don't even have to you don't even have to do anything. It just walks you to it.
Oh, Queen Amidala is a total bitch in the episode 1 game too. I remember the other mission I distinctly remember is the escort mission of her through the streets of Naboo. There's droids with rockets and tanks and everything. You're trying to protect her. If you get a little too far ahead of her, she's like, wait, come back. And then you come back and she's like, don't leave me again. I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'm killing everybody for you. Just go forward.
I hate escort missions so much.
One of the first fucking missions I feel like in Jedi, is it Jedi Outcast? Is the one where you're going, there's like 3 different sections of whatever like station
codes. Yeah,
you have to find the codes and enter the codes.
Blue, green, red.
Yes, when I was younger, it took me fucking forever to figure it out.
Yeah, it's like, where the hell do you go?
Yeah, like where do you go? What do I do? What am I, like, all that shit? It took me fucking forever.
Is that the one in the first level of Outcast?
Yes.
Remember,
yeah,
there's a
the
section
same first
in
part.
when you're like going through the building and you have to like go around this elevator shaft, and there's the gun turrets that you have to like shoot, which those things melted me anytime I played that
turrets, yeah.
And in Jedi Academy, the train level was one of the most infuriating at times. Man, one false move, one bad jump, one time you get force pushed, whatever, you fucking fly off that thing.
I do like it's a total bitch move, but I absolutely abused it on the episode 1 game because it's incredibly glitchy. And a few of those old Star Wars games they're all on the PlayStation Classics and they have a rewind button built in. And so it's like, well, this random panel fell away that there's absolutely no way I could have seen that coming. I'm going to go ahead and rewind that because I really don't feel like there was any lack of skill on my part.
What about you, John, when did you first get into Star Wars?
Well, I remember first seeing the OT because that was actually at a Boy Scouts. We had an event where we stayed at a water park. It was like an indoor water slide and everything, and we rented out a whole big like room, and it was like projected on the wall, and we did the whole OT in one night because that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
And then the prequels. I distinctly remember episode 1 because that was the drive-in. Whenever we saw that, went with the folks, and Park turned the radio on, and I just remember laughing at the droids a lot, and I liked Qui-Gon because green was my favorite color. So anybody with a green lightsaber was good in my book.
Yeah,
I like the red ones. I always rooted for the Empire in the OT.
So you must have liked Ahsoka because you said it's red. It's red.
I don't know Ahsoka. Haven't watched anything with her in it. So boom.
You are better
win.
off as a human being for that.
But I remember there was I remember like not liking Han Solo because he was on the good guys. So I liked Force Awakens because I knew he was going to die in it. Because he's like, I won't sign unless you kill off my character. So I went into that movie so excited to watch him die.
I love that's one of the reasons I hated Force Awakens. Not because he died, but because of how he died.
Well, it's funny. A lot of people say like that relationship, a lot of the modern people of a certain persuasion are like, oh, the Han Solo, he's too forceful. It's like a toxic relationship or whatever. I distinctly remember we went and saw Empire Strikes Back at like the symphony playing in front of it a couple of years ago, which was really cool. The Yoda lifting the X-Wing scene hits different with that. It was like
live going to see an orchestra perform the music along. I've done it with a couple movies recently, including Batman '89, Jurassic Park, shit like that. It's a phenomenal experience.
Mm-hmm. And we came out, and my sister had come to visit to go to this partially. And she had total normie. She doesn't really, hadn't probably watched Empire maybe ever, or maybe it was like her second time. And she was like, man, Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher, that chemistry, that was like the best damn writing in the movie. I was like, oh, and you're like more liberal anyway. So
and you just know Harrison and Carrie were getting it on behind the scenes.
He does, kind of corners her, and she wanted it, obviously. Look, this is a woman who not fucking days before that fucking forced herself on her brother. Okay, didn't ask for Luke's consent to kiss him, but we get all uppity over Han kissing Leia.
Luke was injured, bedridden. She just did it without him being able to resist.
And she did it all just to make Han jealous, because you can see him like crossing his arms, getting very upset. And then he got Chewie in the background going.
Yeah, normal male-female relationships. Now that's like the worst thing ever. You gotta, for guys just have to hide in the corner until, hey, you can speak to me now, and then okay, great.
Han Solo would have been like, I can't get this hyperdrive working. She would have been like, I know all this mechanical stuff. Women in STEM, smiles to the camera.
Do you think we should have had a conversation at some point in Return of the Jedi about, Luke feeling guilty that he used to jerk off to Leia before like they figured out they were brother and sister, He's
like, R2, let me have that hologram for reasons.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in the back of the hut here.
That's actually why the fucking hologram was replaying itself that way, because Luke just waited for the time where she bent over every time. and he was just jerking it to that.
We have to wait till the next day.
Like old VHS tape that used to fucking get weird if you rewound around the same point. Yeah.
Do you consider Splinter the Mind's Eye canon?
It's certainly not.
Can't really be, could it? From what I've heard,
in terms of it is within the Star Wars universe and in a different world. If we hadn't got the sequels, we could have continued on and got that. That's what the point of it was. But obviously, events don't play out that way.
Yeah.
That was written in 78.
It's such a weird book when you like read it now after everything with Han and Leia afterwards.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye was basically, if Star Wars didn't really work, if the movie wasn't a big success, they weren't going to be able to do anymore. Something that could have been turned into like a much lower budget type of production and continue the story thing. Obviously, things changed.
So Luke's the kind of guy who's like, it's not fun unless they're blood related, and then uses the Force to watch him or watch Han and his sister do it.
They use their twin Force bond.
Exactly.
I mean, hey, Luke ended up with a pretty hot wife, so I think he was happy in the end.
Luke got around quite a bit. He like Callista. He was not having any struggles in that. And Akana, he had no struggles in that department.
Well, if they adapt Mara Jade, she'll obviously be a black woman now, because she's a redhead in the regular stuff.
Yep, she's just fighting the patriarchy.
Us gingers, we get erased all the time.
Just fucking stay away from the character, please, God.
Nah, dude, it'd be dope.
But yeah, for me, I've obviously told the story. I've obviously already told the story several times, but we had it. My grandpa's, my dad had the 3-box set of all the original trilogy stuff. So I watched it when I was younger and I liked Star Wars. But it wasn't until the prequel era, until 99 when Phantom Menace came out and there was so much kind of hype around it and so much merchandise and things like that. I got really excited for it as when that came out, I was probably 10, about to turn 11 type of thing. I was probably 10 and a half years old, was the perfect age. And getting to see Phantom Menace in theaters was like such a crazy experience. And after that, I wanted lights out. I wanted everything. And I got it must have been later the following school year. There was one of those Scholastic book catalogs that you got handed out in school, and you took it back to your parents and they could order it. You brought it back and then you with a check and you ordered a book from it. And I found the Jedi Apprentice book, the first book, The Rising Force. I think that's what it's called. And it was a story about Obi-Wan when he was 12, 13 years old and how he became a Padawan for Qui-Gon. So I saw that and like, fuck yes, Obi-Wan's awesome. I want to read this. My mom bought it for me and I was hooked. Went out and bought all of those I could as they were coming out. And then maybe a year or two later, as I'm reading these Jedi Apprentice books meant for kids, my uncle had a big stack of Star Wars books. And he's like, if you like that, why don't you have these? And he pulled out the Thrawn trilogy and all of the Rogue Squadron books. And Rogue Squadron and Wraiths, all the X-Wing novels, at least that had been published at that time. And he gave those to me, and I started digging into those, and I was fucking hooked, man.
Dude, Ryan, I started that book and it has like a really, whenever I was a kid, now I'm remembering that I actually got it at a bookstore the one time, but it was like so depressing at the start that I think I dropped it because I was like I'm like a couple years younger than you, and so I was kind of like, yeah, this is a little sad. He's just like leaving him, because I think they kind of do a fake out where like Qui-Gon's kind of just like giving up on him at the start.
So that was the coolest part to me, was, we see Obi-Wan in the original trilogy, and we think him, and then we see him in at the beginning of Phantom Menace. That's all we had seen of him up to that point. But you're thinking, this dude's fucking awesome. Obviously, he was a legendary Jedi, blah, 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 like all this shit. So you're thinking you're going to read a story about this dude who's just fucking great at everything. And you read it, and it starts with Obi-Wan about to be done as a Jedi. Like, he's gone through all this training, but he's reached the point where he's not really progressing enough. Nobody's choosing him as their Padawan. And if you go so long and you haven't progressed enough, you get sent into the agricultural corps, and you essentially live a life of service, but not as a Jedi.
Yeah.
And because not everybody is going to be able to maintain, not every single person that goes to the Jedi Temple is going to progress or be able to be a Jedi, like a fully trained Jedi. And that's where Obi-Wan is. It's kind of his last chance, these last little sparring things that they have to showcase their skills and their potential. And Qui-Gon Jinn, he hadn't taken an apprentice in a while, but Qui-Gon Jinn, everybody knowed him. He had a great reputation. And Obi-Wan thinks it's his chance. And Qui-Gon says, sorry, kid, not today. And kind of does walk away from him. And Obi-Wan's ready to leave. He's getting shipped off to the agricultural corps. And he happens to be on the same transportation vessel as Qui-Gon is, I think, leaving. And something happens. Something goes down. They end up in a massive problem. And Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon have to work together and stand together to save everybody else there. And Qui-Gon is like, this is the will of the Force, obviously, is continue to bring us together. So he takes him on as his Padawan.
Okay.
But it's like, he's not just some fucking superstar. He's not some Mary Stu or Mary Sue or Gary Stu. He was struggling, like legitimately struggling.
You know what they should have done is had him not be able to do anything. And then whenever he needed to, just like force push Qui-Gon 1,000,000 feet all of a sudden. Once he believes in himself enough or whatever.
I'm a Force user now.
Obi-Wan masters the secret Jedi technique of plot armor.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like a good story. It was just funny because I was like a little kid. I was just like, I'm not reading this depressing stuff. And I just dropped it right away now that I think about it.
And that's always been something I've loved about Star Wars, is it really goes out of its way to show you the growth of each individual character, because none of them really start out as this great Jedi. They have to start somewhere. And as Yoda says to Luke in Empire, or the way of the Jedi must have the deepest commitment, the most serious mind. The quick and easy path is one of the dark side. And you see a lot of people who become Jedi, they start out and they struggle and they don't do very well, but eventually they do grow to a certain level. And you see that it makes you appreciate that growth. You know, when you see Luke and NJO doing all these crazy force powers and slaughtering all these Vong, it makes you appreciate those moments in Empire when he can't lift the X-Wing, but Yoda does and tells him, that is why you fail.
Well, and thus far, I would also say he's not overpowered, because I know that was one of the big things I heard before getting into the EU, was that like, oh, Luke's, doing all they have to get Luke out of there because he's too powerful. And I'm like, through like 4 books, he's been involved in mostly all the major battles, and they basically like lost or had to retreat either immediately or afterwards. And like Luke gets tired. He, has to focus on one area. They get beaten. And it's not like he just comes in and just God mode force waves the whole fleet or something.
He has limitations. You're talking about the Dovin Basil scene, right? Where he overloads it.
Oh yeah.
He like tug of war and then lets go, and it like flings itself back into. It's like a clever use of the Force. But
the Battle of Dantooine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Dantooine.
What's funny about that is like people are like, oh, Luke pulled a black hole or whatever. I'm like, okay, but like photon torpedo, or they said they've beaten those other ways too. It's not like these are massive black holes.
Yeah, and for much of the EU, like Luke is like pretty weak. He loses all the time. He lost to like Kueller. He lost to Jorce Sibaus. He needed Mara and Leia to help him at the end. He loses quite often. He's not just going around kicking ass all over the place.
And in Jedi Outcast, he struggles against Dasan, and Kyle Katarn has to come in and help him.
Yeah, he does.
Obviously,
later on, as they go through, it is revealed like how, like, when Luke decides to like not hold back at all. Especially when you start getting into a little bit later on, when Jason feels like his skills are really progressing and like he could be a match for this, and then he sees his uncle, like that his uncle never really shown him his true like total power before. It's pretty nuts. But yeah, I think all of it's within the bounds of what makes sense, things we'd seen in Star Wars already, and who Luke Skywalker is. a direct descendant of Anakin Skywalker, conceived totally from the Force. You know what I mean?
I can totally see that kind of scene playing out, because as an anime guy, if there's an old man or a super nice guy that never fights, they pretty much always end up having massive hidden power and end up having some super badass flexing scene whenever someone finally breaks them. So I can see Luke being that sort of character, and like the NJO thing. It's like, I'm going to hold back until I absolutely need to, but you don't really want to piss me off or like test these limits.
He's like Mr. Miyagi.
Purist just kind of pointed it out as well. Dark Empire, the comic book story, is something that makes Luke, obviously he was already fearful of falling to the dark side already, but because of his brush with it truly that he has in Dark Empire, while thinking that he can fake it, while trying to pretend like he's an apprentice to the dark side, like because of the struggles he goes through during that, he becomes hyper scared of the dark side. I shouldn't say scared, but he's so cautious of the idea that all it takes is one trip up or one bad decision that could lead me this way. And a lot of the things that you see from him, whether it is holding back or whether it is decisions that he makes with his own students or being a little too cautious sometimes with them, it is that fear of them falling or him falling that is able to restrain that power a little bit. You know what I mean? Because Luke is super fucking powerful.
Yeah. In Dark Empire, he actually just destroys an AT-AT by just like crushing the cockpit of it, just like boom, gone. I think Mara Jade kind of gives him a talking to in either the Vision of the Future or Spectre of the Past too. Like, you got overconfident, you screwed up, and some of your overconfidence might have led to Kip Durin kind of doing what he did, or Kueller kind of doing what he did as well too. So he does make a lot of errors, and that kind of makes him reevaluate the way he uses his powers. And then in NJO, he shows that he can do all these amazing things still when he needs to.
And despite all of his failures, he still remains true to the Jedi path. He doesn't give up. But it's a lot like Spider-Man. He loses so many friends. He fails so many times, but he keeps remaining a hero because that's what they do.
Well, it's funny because in Dark Tide Ruin, they have this scene where they're all confessing something, and Luke like kind of notes a lot of his failures and why he caused kind of a fracture in the Jedi Order, and how like people heard of him as a hero that was doing all these action heavy things. And he's like, but that's not really what the Jedi are. And I failed a little bit to convey exactly what the Jedi should be and everything. And I thought while I was reading that scene, I'm like, yeah. And then he kept going. He didn't go, oh shit, I failed. Better go to an island and drink some titty milk for the next 20 years or something.
Better kill my nephew. I screwed up. I'll just kill my nephew.
I just thought like, oh, it's failure and it's progression of the character rather than this lazy, let's reset everything and then have him come back for 2 seconds and die. It's like, oh wow.
And John, you mentioned Dark Tide Ruin. I really like how in that book, how it ends with Korn going to Ithor and like thinking, oh, I'll just challenge this Vong War Master to a battle to the death. And if I win, I save the planet, not realizing that if he does win, the Vong are just going to nuke the planet anyway, because that's their ritual.
Vong are lame. That was a rage quit by them. They're like, oh, we lost all this stuff. Well, screw you guys. We're going to kill everything.
I think if Shadao Shai... I think Shadao Shai wanted to honor, the terms of the agreement, but, he was dead. And, his, the guy who was took over after him was like, screw this. I'm just going to destroy everything. But also, Korn was kind of pissed off that, they killed Elagos Akla. So he's like, F this, I'm kicking this guy's ass.
At least he got the bones back,
Yeah, that's true.
At least he got the bones back.
Well, and the Purist just made a great point in the chat, because I remember this scene as well. Whenever he stabs Shadao Shai, and they make note of like the lights pouring out of Shadao Shai's mouth, and there's like smoke rising, and it melts all of his insides. Just thought that's weird. So it's not just a little cigar burn. That's
Sabine would have survived that no problem easily. And Reva,
funny.
Like it's just a flesh wound. Hold still.
Paper cut. Just put some pressure on it.
Real quick, I saw a couple of these. East Coast Toasty Boy For $5, we could have 3 Star Wars days if we include in Revenge of the 6th, after Revenge of the 5th.
I feel like it's a little lazy to use the same title.
Now, I celebrated Revenge of the Sith on May 19th, the anniversary of when that movie came out. And boy, that movie still holds up to this day. But man, the novelization is just, it's incredible. Oh. That beginning stretch when it's just the introduction of Anakin, Obi-Wan, General Grievous, and like what the galaxy as a whole thinks of the war. Man, it's so good. And that last line of saying, this is the end of the age of heroes, but it has saved its best for last.
It's a phenomenal fucking book. And the first third of the entire book is just the rescue of Palpatine, basically. And you get Count Dooku's headspace throughout it, like all the things that he had talked about with Plagueis, with Palpatine, the things that he expected to go down. How when they started the fight, he was like a little hesitant because he's like, look, it's Obi-Wan, Anakin, prodigious Force user, but they start the fight and he's like, what the fuck? This is easy. Like Anakin's using Ataru at that point, and Obi-Wan, he's not impressed by what Obi-Wan's doing, and he feels like he's going to have him outmatched. And then they fucking completely flip things on their head, and Anakin shifts into his Gemso, and he's like shocked that Obi-Wan's become a master of Sarisu effectively. And it is fantastic. I love the Count Dooku duel in Revenge of the Sith.
And the great thing is when you watch the duel in the movie, you can actually see that switch of Dooku realizing that like, oh, they're switching up their styles, and he switches to his Force powers to separate them. And Anakin like seizes the advantage and whatnot. And like it's a great. I love that attention to detail of like, oh, we're actually gonna go into detail of like what every Jedi's fighting style is and see the advantages and disadvantages, and really show why of all people Obi-Wan was, for say, the best one to go up against Grievous, because Grievous is a very aggressive fighter, but he can't go up against a Sarisu expert like Obi-Wan because he's just gonna block everything.
But wait, how could he be surprised? They'd only fought like a week before that.
When last I fought.
Yeah, my powers have doubled since the last time we met, Count.
They've got a little chalkboard. They're like, all right, you guys have won 6. I think I've won 4 at this point. All right. Well, one time we were captured together. Yeah.
Obi-Wan, did you come here to destroy me? No, you came after me.
Yeah, if only, I think they would have actually sent Ahsoka after Grievous if she had not been so busy on Mandalore at the time. But yeah, Revenge of the Sith novelization is great. Even for people that don't care about the books or anything else about the Star Wars Expanded Universe, that book is like a must read or must listen to if you want to do Audible.
And before you even read the Revenge of the Sith novelization, check out Labyrinth of Evil, because that's a book that pretty much sets up all the events of Revenge of the Sith.
Well, one of the coolest things that sets up Revenge of the Sith was the Tartakovsky Clone Wars. Yeah. I remember watching that on Cartoon Network, but it had such short episodes. But like the clone troopers in that, whenever they're doing the whole city assault and they're just doing hand signals the whole time, he's like pulls out the bazooka, hits the droids on the balcony, and then the whole like dirge, and it has like great humor too. Whenever like a ship flies by and Obi-Wan's talking with the clone commander, and he's like, that was a droid ship. That was Anakin. He's just, and everything he says, he just responds to, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because clones are bred to follow orders.
That introduces Grievous and then obviously sets up the kidnapping of Palpatine and all that shit.
Right. And Mace Windu, he has 2 of the cool, I mean, when he crushes Grievous to explain the coughing in episode 3 a little bit, as he like hits him as he's escaping with Palpatine. But then also one of the coolest episodes was just kind of a bottle was whenever Mace Windu's fighting like the whole droid army. And it's like something that probably like is overpowered canonically speaking, but it's such a cool episode that I don't care. Whenever he just like rapid fire punches the one super battle droid and then blows it off.
It's obviously going to be kind of like it's a stylistic thing in terms of like the way that that's animated and displayed. But I will point in mind, you do have your Shatterpoint ability from Mace Windu as well. So.
Oh, when he twists his wrists and all the nuts and bolts come out of the one droid and it just falls apart. I'm like, he just like,
great.
it was just fucking just porn, force porn, basically, where it's just like, what else can we have Mace do that's awesome in this episode? Because we're just going to have him destroy an entire army by himself.
Another great Force moment is when Anakin is fighting Ventress on Yavin 4, and she tries to like Force blast him, but he like straight resists it. But like you can see like some of his robes ripping off. He's just like, what the heck was that? Force blast, and then he Force blasts her through the wall.
Yeah, that's a brutal fight.
That's a Samurai Jack thing too. They always get the battle damage, get the guy shirtless.
And then like they're fighting on top of the temple, and you can see like the red light of Yavin Prime illuminating off of them.
And the raindrops on the lightsabers with the steam coming off in that fight, that was always like a cool visual. And then Kit Fisto, he got a really cool moment in that too. Whenever he's like fighting on is it a Mon Cal?
Mon Calamari.
Yeah, and he's like he's making like the water balls with the Force and throwing them at the underwater droids to like take out a leg of one of them, and they fall over. Like that series is just it's really cool to dive into a lot of the little aspects you didn't get. There's the episode on the Kyber crystal planet where they have to go, where Yoda and Padme go and rescue. Yeah,
Luminara and Barisofi.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got like the camo droids like placing all the mines everywhere.
Yeah, and they're clever. They like throw the mines back at those droids once they get them uncloaked. Like it's just like awesome moments for all the Jedi Masters that didn't get, unfortunately. I'm sure in the books they do, but you know, during the movies themselves, they're a little bit of background characters.
And also in that episode, Barriss does not turn into a terrorist who bombs the temple or whatever.
I didn't even realize that was the same character in the Filoni. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Barriss, and yeah. She's one of the many characters that got kind of just fucking crucified in TCW.
Which character do you think got ruined most by TCW? My vote probably still goes to General Grievous because he's like a monster in the old continuity, and they turn him into such a wimp.
Gets bodied by Gungans.
He gets bodied by Gungans.
It's hard to imagine that Grievous would be considered as much of a threat if we had seen everything we saw in TCW. You know what I mean? It's not a person, but all of Mandalorian culture, like in general, got absolutely eviscerated by TCW.
Poor Karen Travis.
I don't know if it's like damage to Anakin, but the problem is TCW is not Anakin. Like it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, in like the old continuity, he's like this awkward like kid who has all the weight of the world placed on him, and it goes to his head. Whereas in TCW, he's just like this surfer boy, dude, bro. Far out, man. Hey, Thoka, let's go on to some wacky adventure, dude.
Yeah, they wanted to make him like super likable and shit. It was just very weird.
Hipster Anakin.
Hipster Anakin.
He probably likes sand in those ones.
Yeah, probably Biggles.
Of course, it's really irritating.
Jake the Movie Geek, have you guys ever played the OG Clone Wars game where you drive vehicles? My uncle gave me that game. I was obsessed with it.
I actually have that game.
What's the game called? Just Clone Wars?
Yeah, it's just called the Clone Wars. Like, yeah, the very first few levels are like on Geonosis, where you're like playing as Mace Windu, and you see the prelude to the arena battle.
So it's not the Attack of the Clones game.
It is kind of like the Attack of the Clones game. Like it ties into the Battle of Geonosis, and then there's a couple levels after that where you go to planets like Raxus Prime. And you see a little tie-in to Tales of the Jedi, where Anakin sees a message from Ulic Qel-Droma and all that, teaching him how to resist the influence of the Dark Reaper, because Dooku is wanting to use it as a super weapon.
Okay. No, I think this is... I forgot if it was called Clone Wars. It must have been called Clone Wars, because I'm pretty sure I played that game. The Dark Reaper's like the final boss level. It's like this big dark orb that's like about to be unleashed on everything, and you have to stop it from like charging up, I'm pretty sure. Or something like that. There was one that was tied into the Attack of the Clones because like Yeah, it does like Geonosis in the beginning for a few like kind of tutorial type levels. And there's a lot of vehicle combat. And then it moves into like Anakin and Obi-Wan in kind of the opening days of the Clone Wars. And they're going on a few missions.
And then Jake says, what are your experiences with the OG Battlefronts? I used to play those all the time. I wish I could have got Battlefront 3. They were awesome.
I still play them.
Yeah, I had 2.
I played the ever-loving shit out of Battlefront 2. I remember loving the heroes versus villains mode where you just play as all the characters on Mos Eisley.
And it played the bar music.
Yeah. You got like the original music from Jabba's Palace before it got replaced with that shitty Jedi Rock song from the special edition.
Man, I just played the space battles like 90% of the time. I never even played the unless I was playing with friends. I never played the heroes versus villain one. I just played the space one because the part I liked the most about Star Wars was the space battles and stuff, like Galactic or what is
Conquest.
War of the Galaxy or whatever. It's a different game. No, Empire's at War. The
Empire.
RTS. The Empire or the RTS game for Star Wars, the ground battles are fucking awful, but like the space battles were great. And like you could set it up and just watch a whole battle. And like that's why
Empire at War was really fun. It was because basically they really streamlined all of the resource collecting in that. Basically, different planets could produce different types of ships or weaponry or whatever. And then the different planets that you held gave you a certain amount of credits every day cycle or whatever that would go through. I loved Empire at War. People are still doing mods and stuff for Empire at War.
Yeah,
like run campaigns and stuff like that.
Didn't they add like a mod where you can play as the Clone Wars factions, like Republic and Separatists?
There are a ton of mods and a ton of different campaigns that people like custom ones that people have made for that game.
See, I had Galactic Battlegrounds, which was like a
I love that shit.
It was like a copy of Age of Empires. I think it used like the same engine as Age of Empires because I got that first, and that's like real world history and everything. And then the Star Wars one, you like look at the back of the box, you're like, oh shit, this is in Star Wars, the Age of. Because I remember the cheat codes. It was like you could enter Imperial entanglements to get a Star Destroyer, and it would shoot down these massive exploding balls. Then you could enter Simon Says, and it was this Ewok that would run around super fast and rapid fire lasers and just like destroy everything.
So Galactic Battlegrounds was you got to be a faction, right? And each faction had different warriors, different vehicles, different air combat vehicles, different strengths, different weaknesses, all this shit. So you could play as the Empire, the Rebellion, Wookiees, Gungans, clones, CIS droids. I'm sure I'm missing a handful of other things there.
Yeah, and they had campaigns for each.
They had a campaign.
So, yeah, they would be like the first mission I remember of the droid campaign was like, oh, we just lost our whole army on Naboo. Go and kill that entire Gungan army that just did that. And you like have to do the follow-up to episode 1 where you just go in as the Trade Federation and like decimate the entire Gungan village and everything.
Bibbles, you might have liked the X-Wing or the TIE Fighter games from the 90s. That was probably like one of the best flight simulator type of games at that time.
That shit held up for decades. Like
I think I played the ones on N64.
No,
PC.
So N64 you had stuff like Rogue Squadron or whatever, but we're talking about real flight simulators like
first person, like in the cockpit.
Yeah,
on PC with a joystick and everything.
Oh, I never got to play those.
Dude, those are fucking awesome.
And those were sort of like vectory graphics, right? Where they
Yeah.
were like straight green lines or like red lines or whatever was kind of like representing the things, or was it more detailed graphics than that?
It was way more detailed.
Okay, I'm thinking of I think I'm thinking of like an early arcade game for Star Wars where it was sort of like that.
You know, I mean, and this came out in like 94.
Yeah, those were mid 90s, I remember.
93, 94, 95 for
Star Wars TIE Fighter.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah,
TIE Fighter,
It says-
TIE Fighter 2, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter.
Steam says July 1st, 1994. Looks pretty cool.
yeah. They're very detailed in terms of hey, you only have so much energy production, right? So you have to decide what to prioritize, because you can't just shoot your lasers with no like consequences. You have to set a recharge rate. But if you put all of your power resources towards that, you're not going to be able to go as fast. Your engines aren't going to be as powerful. And then if you're dealing with a ship that has shields, like if you're Rebel Alliance and you have shields, you also have to set your shield recharge rate. And you can determine whether you want single fire lasers, whether you want dual linked lasers, or whether you want your quad burst. But all those have different time rates, right? So it's very complex.
Yeah, and some of the Imperial ships, they actually have like a tractor beam, so you could like suck the enemy ships towards you and then shoot a missile at them to make it easier to hit.
The TIE Defender specifically had a mission, I think, where you were trying to like capture the Millennium Falcon or some shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how they actually incorporate some of those elements into the books as well. In Ice Lord's Revenge, yes, they fight, in TIE Defenders and use some of these mechanics as well, which was really awesome. As well as in Starfighters of Adamar, Wedge Antilles takes on Turf Veneer, who's going around in a TIE Defender, and they're using some of these mechanics. It's like, holy crap, that's awesome.
The one I played a lot was the Starfighter tie-in game for Phantom Menace, where you like played as the Naboo Bravo flight, and the very last mission is the one where you take on the droid control ship. That level was a bitch to me when I was a kid.
That was just called Starfighter, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just called Starfighter, and the Sean Levy was like, that would make a great title for a movie.
Yeah.
And from what you're saying, like, this game was a lot more simplified because you can just spam your guns all over the place. However, when you're playing as the Bravo flight pilot, you only have so many proton torpedoes. Whereas there's this one ship where you play as Vanna Sage, and like her gun shoots just like a stun burst, which disables the shields. And Nim has a bomber where like his bombs will arc down and do a lot of damage to ground battle units. That was a really fun game when I was a kid. It still holds up pretty well to this day. And I really love the Tordarian pilot, Reddy. He's just like, I was going to flush your body out and strip your motor down for parts.
Well, I won't shill too hard for it, but I will say on PSN, they add like a couple classic games every month, and they went through a real spurt where they were adding a shit ton of these Star Wars games, and they all have kind of the quick save and the rewind and everything. Because I went through, it was before Outlaws came out. I was just like playing a shit ton of the classic Star Wars games because they had, weirdly enough, they don't have Rebel Assault 1, but they have Rebel Assault 2, where that's like a arcade shooter kind of game where you're like going through these bases and you move the little cursor around the screen to shoot the stormtroopers as they pop out.
Oh man.
And it's got like little arcade score up in the corner. And then the Clone Wars game, the Phantom Menace game, they got Demolition, which is like a vehicle based one. So they have a shit ton of them available.
Was Rogue Leader the game where you also got out of the cockpit and like walked around and shot shit too? was that Rogue Squadron 2 or was that Rogue Leader? Does anybody remember?
I think Rogue Squadron 2 is Rogue Leader.
All right, well there it is. So that one, I think there's a portion where you're fucking Wedge Antilles. This is actually crazy. So it has multiple things, right? You do your missions, you're flying around, but you also have ground scenarios, and it's very simplistic. You're just out there with a blaster, and you're like turning as you're shooting, right, to like kill things. But there's one where I believe you're Wedge, and you have a crash landing effectively. Like there's some random interference from something, and his system's malfunction. He has a crash landing on Geonosis, and you're surrounded by fucking enemies and old things that have been left over from the war and all this shit. And you find, I think, Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter that was left there, from 20 years ago. and he gets it working, and he fucking flies it out to escape, and you're using the big fucking seismic bombs that he has, bong, then like blowing apart the fucking asteroid field on the way out. It's fun as shit. Oh, Rebel Strike. That's the one. Rebel Strike is the one.
The other, not a video game, but I remember I had the, it was like Battleship, but it was Star Wars themed, and they had like, it was a little computer voice would tell you when you hit it, because that was the first time we were talking about some of the EU books, and there was a certain class of ship. It was like an Invictus class, like or Star Destroyer or something. And I was like, I've heard that somewhere before. And then I'm like, oh, it's from this battleship shit, because it would be like, it would tell you what you hit. It'd be like Imperial Star Destroyer hit, and it'd be like,
is that the one that has like the built-in tractor beam that prevents people from going into hyperspace?
Oh, no, it was pretty. It was basically just Battleship. So it's nothing complicated.
No, I'm talking about the ship.
It's the interdictor that does that. The interdictor stops them. Yeah.
Oh no, it's Victory class Star Destroyer was the ship I was thinking of. Where I was like, yeah, that was the one that like jogged my memory when we were talking about. I'm like, so they had clearly like talked a little bit with the EU people or something. I don't know, but
yeah, they work together really well.
All of those things, like. When they're making those games, they're working within the established lore with Lucasfilm, right? So all these different classes of ships, all those things that got laid out specifically, whether it's an Imperial Star Destroyer, an M-class Deuce, a Victory, an interdictor cruiser, all that shit. It's all from the same lore Bible that they had to work with.
Yep.
A lot of things that were established later on in the series, in the movies, was actually pulled from some games, whether it was, role-playing tabletop games, lore that was created for those things. A lot of that stuff they utilized, whether it was people or worlds or species or vehicles, all that shit to make the Star Wars movie.
Yeah, you also get the Jedi Academy on Yavin 4 in Jedi Outcast. Yeah, you go there and you see everybody training and doing on their moves. That's like one of the coolest parts of that.
You spend a lot of time there in Jedi Academy as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is fun. Get to create your own character.
Well, I think it's pretty amazing how a bunch of nerds in the 90s, without even being able to easily search this stuff, that would have had to read the books or use primitive internet, can apparently do a better job of keeping track than all the current team that's supposed to do that.
To quote Tony Gilroy, screw the canon, or whatever he said.
Hey, yeah. Tony, you do realize that Mon Mothma already addressed the Senate back in Rebels Season 2. Yeah, I don't care.
Jake the Movie Geek, Ryan, I don't really understand what Dooku thought was going to happen. Did he think an army of Sith Lords was going to be made when Anakin joined them? Not an army, just Anakin.
Yeah, because
he thought it was it was his job to get Anakin to give in to that anger, to get Anakin to take that step. That was his job, and he'd been convinced by Palpatine that they would all be a team. You know what I mean?
I think he's referring to the rule of two. Like, did he think we're not going to do that anymore, and we're just gonna we're all Sith now. We're not gonna kill each other, backstab our master. But I think a lot of Sith Lords kind of, I know Plagueis, I think he's like, it'll be good. It's okay. I could have Maul and Palpatine. It'll work out.
Look, nobody fucking stuck to the rule of two.
Yeah.
This fucking didn't. Bane established it, and by the end, Bane is looking for another fucking apprentice because he doesn't think his apprentice is ever going to actually challenge him. That's the first motherfucker that did it.
Come on, picturing the conversation beforehand where he's just like, and then you will convince young Skywalker, and he's like, and then we'll be the rule of three, right? He's like, what? Oh yeah, sure. totally, yeah. Three amigos, that's right.
Yeah, and a lot of people seem to misunderstand that Dooku, he's not like some misunderstood anti-hero. Like, he's a bad guy. He only really used the Separatists because he wanted to use them as an scapegoat when secretly he hated them all. he was like, ugh, these damned aliens.
He is, but he's also not the same kind of like level of evil that like Palpatine is, right?
Yeah, he's not like straight up evil like Palpatine or Grievous.
He's Dooku is super fucking arrogant, and essentially views things as like, this is the way to do it. This is the way to handle it. And obviously it was ripe for the picking to be swayed a little bit into Palpatine's way of thinking, which they do a lot of great work to show his frustrations with the Jedi and kind of more of his true nature in the Plagueis novel. While you have some of those discussions, but ultimately, look, the purpose of that was they wanted to kill Obi-Wan and potentially turn Anakin. That's what they wanted to happen.
So in the Plagueis novel, do they detail his time in the cave where he's creeping on his apprentices and stuff, peeking around the corner?
We don't mention that.
While it plays ball.
I still remember watching the EFAP highlights, and when Plagueis showed up, you can just hear Ryan going, "Go fuck yourself, you cocksucking bitches."
Biggles, you got to bounce?
Yeah, I got to go.
All right. What's your favorite Star Wars movie?
Favorite Star Wars movie? Empire Strikes Back.
The one you watched 3 times in a row?
Yeah, when I first saw it, yeah, I had to watch it 3 times in a row. Well, we watched Jedi and then went back to finish it like 3 more times in a row. But,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming. Where can people find you, Biggles?
You can find me at youtube.com/BigglesMets. I'll also throw it in the chat.
Yeah, put your link in there.
I know a lot of people here don't talk anime, but me, Crimson Law, and Little Chat talk anime on Monday night. And if you like JRPGs, we're playing the whole Trail series over there. We'll be on Cold Steel 2 when I get back from my trip, because my birthday is next week. So I'm going out of town doing a birthday stream on Friday. And yeah, that's it.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Biggles. Appreciate having you, man.
Bye, Biggles.
See you later. Happy birthday.
Bye, everybody.
Happy birthday.
Happy early birthday.
There you go.
Hey,
Thank
John,
you, Biggles.
didn't you mention earlier that you're a fan of anime?
I have, yeah.
Well, have you ever seen the KOTOR 2 anime that recently came out?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's on a channel called I think Lore Flesh or something. He does a lot of animes for Metal Gear, and he did one for the opening level of KOTOR 2 on Paragus. It's actually really well made.
Well, I would watch that because apparently they're never going to bring the KOTOR games to fucking PlayStation. I know I could get a PC, but I have a fucking Mac and I can't spend a couple thousand on a PC. Anyways, so I've always been really frustrated by the fact that they ported that to fucking Switch KOTOR and they haven't put it on PlayStation yet.
Can't you play it on like iPad and shit?
Yeah, it's true.
So you should be at like, I don't know how fucking Macs work, to be honest, but if it's in the Apple store and you can play it on an iPod, can't you play it on a computer?
That's true. I could probably get it to go, and I can get this to play on the TV too, so I could play it on a big screen and everything. I didn't know how well it would run or whatnot, but it is an old game, so I'm sure it's fine to run. You just can't turn it up to 4K or whatever, which I don't care about.
Yeah, look at your textures and your graphics. It's not really why you're playing KOTOR. It's also like turn-based and shit like that. So
I play old-ass games with the creepy polygon faces all the time, so I really don't care about that.
Lara Croft and her triangle boobs.
Yeah, definitely not a graphics whore, although Claire Obscure Expedition 33, that's been a fucking amazing game recently. Even though it's French, I never thought I'd say it. They made something awesome.
Stephen Lee, Florida should be glassed. Florida Panthers suck. Man, they're up 3-0 right now, aren't they? Aren't they up 3-0,
Carolina?
Steven?
Yeah, they've been slaughtering the Hurricanes.
You're just mad because your Canadian team got knocked out, huh?
I think they've outscored them like 16-4 in that series or something.
Must suck when U.S. is even better at hockey than you. That's rough. Thanks, Steven. SWA, happy Star Wars Day. Long live George Lucas Star Wars. Long live the expanded universe. Currently reading The Cestus Deception. OG Battlefront to his peak. Revenge of the Sith game. Revenge of the Sith game is sick. I talk about it all the time. OG Battlefront 2 is great. The voiceover through the campaign of that game is awesome.
Oh, yep. Much better acting than in the Boba Fett show by, I'm guessing that is Tamora Morrison, or it sounds exactly like him.
I think it was Tamora Morrison.
I think he voiced it.
Yeah. I imagine they could get him to voice however many scenes. I mean, the thing is, it's such an economy of storytelling. It's not too much like stuff, but what he does, it's a very memorable, awesome story.
His narration.
Yeah, and way better than, well, I wasn't a human being anymore because I had a chip that got turned on in my fucking brain. You know,
it's the Jedi knew about because one malfunctioned and just did nothing about it. That's weird. This clone killed a bunch of Jedi. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. His narration in the Order 66 mission on Battlefront is really good. When he says, "Did we have any doubts? Did we have any private traitorous thoughts? If so, none of us said a word."
Yep. I remember the A-list whenever you finish the Felucia mission too, and he's just like, "None of us could stare at it in the eyes."
Good thing we were wearing helmets.
Yeah. And then I thought, wow, he was probably really thinking we all just wanted to stare at her tits because they were rocking, let's be honest.
I remember playing that mission, and when those crab creatures from the Geonosis arena showed up, I was like, oh, God.
I just remember the line because you hear all the guys get slaughtered, then they're like, come in, come in. Oh, no, they're all dead.
They're all dead.
They're called Akles, I believe.
Akles. I also love how Alana, Jason and Tenelka's daughter, she has like a pet. What's the name of that tiger creature that claws?
Nexu.
Nezu.
Well, I always say Nexu.
A Nexu.
It might be Nezu. I guess I always thought it was Nexu. But
and you just know George was, when he was making Attack of the Clones, was thinking to himself, "Man, how do we get Padme to show some stomach?"
Bro, it doesn't really make sense how that fucking happens. I was all for it though.
Me too.
I mean, I was fucking 13 years old, 14 years old, something like that when that. So yeah, I was all for it.
Man, it's crazy how you got like both Natalie Portman and Carrie Fisher as some sort of first crush for any generation of nerds. All the kids back in the 80s watching Return of the Jedi for the first time, and you see Leia in the metal bikini. Ooh.
Who would you pick? Who's your pick? You have to pick one or the other, Padme or Leia.
I'd still probably say Leia.
Gotta go with Leia, the original.
I cheat. I choose Ayla. Tug on the Leku. Anyways, look, she's got the best. She's got the best tits. I know Leia looks great in the slave bikini, but I think Ayla would have looked better. Just saying.
Mara's got a good rack too.
So, I'm not just look. I think it comes down to a lot of things, right? Padme, look, Leia. You don't have to worry about fucking asking her dad to marry her. That's fucking a home planet anymore. Like, what happened to all of her fucking money? Like, that's a big question.
Padme on the rebound.
Padme's fucking loaded, right? Padme's family fucking loaded after all this shit that's happened, right? Got a lot of money. But she's also like really fucking entitled and, very self-important. Both of them have like political aspirations. Both of them will stand up against like different things and fucking argue with you about a million things.
One thing Padme definitely has going for her is she's the kind of person who, if you admit that you slaughtered a bunch of people, including women and children, she'll still love you.
Truly and deeply love you.
Human.
Actually, you're right. But she didn't stick with her man to the end, though.
Oh yeah, like Palpatine trying to like put that little idea in Anakin's head. Padme, she might actually love Obi-Wan.
Padme
That's really well done in the book.
She could have solved everything too just by getting Anakin to calm down. When he starts choking her, she could have just been like, harder. He would have been like, what? Hang on, let's just all take a deep breath.
She turned her back on Anakin when he needed him the most, and he was doing all of that for her. So,
what a bitch!
Save you, Padme. Only my new powers can do that.
It's a tough answer. It's a tough answer.
the worst. I mean, we're mostly praising it, but I do have to say, whenever you guys were talking about the Obi-Wan Anakin Dooku duel, it's probably the worst shot of the prequels for me. Whenever Dooku pulls down that balcony and it just skids Obi-Wan across, I'm like, wouldn't his body just be fucking crushed by that?
Ow, my legs.
It was really bad CGI. Yeah.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took a balcony to the knee.
Obi-Wan just comes back in a wheelchair for the next fight. He's like, yeah, dude, my fucking spine was crushed because you let Dooku drop a balcony on me. What the hell?
I missed something.
He needs to get the he needs to travel to Earth to find Tony Stark so he can walk again.
And you know, one other girl who I think in Star Wars that would make a good match is actually Jaina, because you can always count on her to fix your car.
It's true.
She sort of fits that stereotype that we see a lot in the early 2000s of like the hot female mechanic.
The Megan Fox Transformers.
Megan Fox's character in Transformers.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think they copied that trope, or maybe Megan Fox specifically, whenever Final Fantasy 15, there's like a super hot mechanic chick you run into constantly in the game.
I guess I don't know if you guys have all read I'm pretty sure John hasn't got there yet. What do you guys think of Vistara?
Vistara Kai?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't read I've only read the last book of Fate of the Jedi because I've heard that all the important plot details happen in that one book. So I don't really know a whole lot, but I don't know. Like, she seems fine. Like, Sith lady trying to like seduce Ben, whatnot. He already had experience with that with Tahiri, but I don't know. I would have loved to have seen that relationship between her and Ben evolve more in Sword of the Jedi, but we're never going to see that.
She's from Fate of the Jedi, right? I don't think I got to her on this.
Yeah, Fate of the Jedi.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, I the Fate of the Jedi series, not as well beloved as the Legacy of the Force series for me, but I still really like it, especially because a lot of the Luke Ben stuff that we get.
Yeah, it has some cool moments, like that one bit.
There's some great father-son moments in that book.
There's that one fight between Saba Sabatine and the Avatar of Abeloth, where like Saba just straight up like heel kicks the leg and crushes it. Because, man, don't sleep on Saba Sabatine. She's kind of a beast, both literally and figuratively.
Well, I commented last night during Purist or Melvin's stream where the Purist was on, but I was saying, like, thinking back on Ruin Desharcourt, whenever she bites it and has that scene with Anakin where she's talking about how, Chewie believed in him too, and he wouldn't have changed anything, and neither would I. Whenever I was first reading that, I immediately thought, like, afterwards, I'm like, wow, this is a more impactful and meaningful death than like the original trilogy characters dying in the fucking sequels. Like, they made me care more about this than what Disney managed to pull off, even though I've only known this character for like 2 books and she's been in a few scenes.
Death in Last Jedi should have been like the most impactful death of all time. And instead, he just like straight up fades away. They don't even like have the decency to show like his metal hand falling down or what. Because the problem is like, and the thing is, the way he actually dies, I don't have a problem with, because the way he like stares off into the twin suns, it's sort of like this nice full circle moment. The build up to it, however, it's all wrong, because he should have been there on Crate to fight Kylo. He should have been there. He should have like gotten over his little grief and trained her, but instead he just stays there on that island. And everyone likes to say that Rey's role in that movie was to like make Luke remember himself. That's not even what happened. That was Yoda. It was Yoda who told him, the greatest teacher there is. Wouldn't it be nice if like Luke learned from the mistakes of the prequel trilogy and actually like got over that and created a better Jedi Order? No, let's just have him suffer the same fate as the Clone Wars Jedi.
Well, this
Instead,
is
she gets her ass. Instead, Luke gets his ass kicked by Rey, and Rey's gonna start the Jedi Order because she does everything better than Luke Skywalker.
And she's gonna train little Cassian Jr. in the ways of the Jedi.
an old Ahsoka. She'll be like, "I'll get you."
So I forgot who it was. Somebody like either sent me a super chat or something and said there's going to be a story that they tell, an Andor type story about the second Death Star. It's going to be about a Hispanic guy named Manny Bothans. Manny Bothans died
To bring us this
this information.
That's pretty good.
Oh my god.
I thought that was really good.
Played by Manny Jacinto.
Oh god.
Oh god.
He went to the world between worlds, got teleported ahead. He's going to raise Cassian's son and then sacrifice himself to. But whenever you're bringing that up and like how shittily they set up that death, it's such a contrast with even the first. Well, now I've done 4 books of the NJO, and like I think of like how much more impactful like the Chewie death. They've been dealing with it now for 4 novels from different characters' perspectives. Anakin with all the guilt associated with it. Han becomes like goes on a drinking bender for a few months, and then like in the 4th book, he finally is kind of forced back into action. He gets his own call to action, sort of, and it's sort of a confluence of circumstances. And whenever they're so subtle and skillful with how they put in the Force into Han's storyline, where he hears like a voice as he's piloting the ship, and it goes and it has this whole scene where it helps him, and it's like, oh yeah, it's a poison gas. And it's like, hold your breath. And he's like, I don't know who said that. I don't know what happened, but for some reason I knew how to hold my breath. And then like later on, he's talking to Luke in like the epilogue of the book, and he's just like, don't even say anything, Luke. I know that it was Chewie in the Force, basically, but don't brag about, like, basically he's still giving him shit for all the Force stuff, but it's like this nice subtle nod where you're like, oh shit. And that just like hit emotionally then, because it was just like, oh, Chewie reached out in the moment that his friend needed him.
What was it, Chewie, or was it Vergeer who reached out to him? Do you guys remember?
Are you talking about for
when Elon was releasing the poison in the shuttle that Han and Droma were in, and Vergeer was in there, and she was about to like I thought it was Vergeer who had. I might be wrong. I thought Vergeer had
so the way I heard it, at least at the end of the book, it seems like Han thinks that it was Chewie reaching out to, and then there's another moment where he sees what's his face, the Rin, I forget his exact name right now, but he runs into a Rin who he works with in these books, and it's like an alien species, but he's sitting in Chewie's seat, and he says that he kind of like briefly out of the corner of his eye that he feels like he saw Chewie for a split second. He's like, oh yeah, Droma, right?
Yeah, his mind's playing tricks on him and shit.
Yeah, it's just like the way they tackled it. He's kind of like going through stages of grief for like 4 whole books or 3.5 books, like since Chewie died.
They get to a point as well. This is really much of a spoiler, but it's like, because it's set up for Chewie and how big he is and stuff. Like eventually he has to like replace that seat and everything, and and shit like that. So yeah, it never really gets over for Han.
Yeah, and Luceno does a great job in that book series, like referring back to the A.C. Crispin and Brian Daly books, and bringing in some of the characters from there. I believe Roa makes an appearance in Hero's Trial as well too, and they talk about Bria Darin, the one who actually got the plans for the Death Star, but sure.
Well, and basically my whole point with that is that like that the death of people clown on it whenever they're going on the EU, and I actually didn't know that it was in that book. Whenever I started off with Vector Prime, I didn't know it was in there, so it sort of like took me by surprise a little bit, even though I had a guess in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, that's when this happens. But the way that they deal with that, think about that, like Han dies in The Force Awakens. How do they deal with that for the remainder of the trilogy? It's like it's barely touched on. Like nobody hardly even mentions it. I think she yells at Kylo one time. Rey does, like, "Oh, you killed Han Solo," And I was like, okay, but he was already evil, so that really didn't serve any. It's just like they do these cheap shock effect deaths, and then they don't like have it affect the story in any meaningful way. And it's just like that puddle deep kind of storytelling compared to, and it's the same thing with Force conversations in the EU thus far that I've read, where it's like so much deeper, and they actually have time to delve into it in dialogue and in thought, and tackling it from different angles with distinct characters, and so much better storytelling, basically.
The thing is, if you're gonna do it this way, if it's not Han like sacrificing himself to save somebody, or just like going out in a blaze of glory, if it's not that, right, then it needs to be something that's super impactful and meaningful for Kylo. But none of that happens at all. Like, it's like, if the thing was he was struggling, he was teetering, and this was the thing that sent him over the fucking edge, and this was his commitment to that. This was like that moment where he tossed away this mask of Ben Solo, like all this shit, and like permanently became this other character. I still wouldn't like it, right? But at least I could understand the storytelling there, and this and the meaningfulness of Han Solo, of his death there. But they didn't do any of that shit. In fact, John, they only got more conflicted after that.
And John, I know you haven't gotten to this point in the EU yet, but they have essentially that same kind of moment for Jason. I don't want to say what happens, but I think it's really well done. And also going back to what you were saying about Chewie's death, I just think back to Rian Johnson when he's cutting up Last Jedi. He's thinking to himself, yeah, I would love to show this scene of Luke mourning Han, but I really need to make time for the titty milk scene. So let's just cut this out.
Oh, I know. He's like, where's Han? Then it cuts away.
And then it cuts away. And they have a scene of Luke mourning Han, but it's a deleted scene. Like, what are you doing?
And it's always that shallow shit with anything. Like, even in Ahsoka, when they start discussing the Force, they basically repeat a few Empire lines, and then it's just like, they're done. They can't go any deep. Whereas in NJO, they get into these whole conversations with the Jedi arguing with each other as far as like, how preemptive can we be? If we do a preemptive strike and it still saves millions of lives because this war would have continued in a much worse way without it, is that still within the confines of our morality? And it's just like, but we're also going to fall to the dark side because we're attacking people, we're not defending. And it gets in, they discuss these things ad nauseum and like in new, interesting ways every time so far.
Like that scene in Mass Effect when Garrus asks Shepard, are we willing to sacrifice 10 billion lives so 20 billion over there can live?
Ryan, have you ever played Mass Effect?
I've played through it when it first came out a long time ago. I played 1, I played parts of 2, and then I played all of 3. But I never really got into it as much.
Because I really think like as far as like cultures and distinct alien species and like having them really like a step both from like a comedic and character angle, it does a really, it's probably like on par with Star Wars or Star Trek, I would say, where they really establish like really distinct species and everything.
Well, the thing is about Star Wars, it feels like it puts more effort into fleshing out factions than it does species. Like how Star Trek, they separate everything between Federation, Romulans, Klingons, Cardassians, all that.
That's true.
But in Star Wars, you think of Jedi, Sith, Mandalorians, the Hutts.
And I would say Mass Effect is more like scientific, more like Star Trek, where it talks about the evolutionary, how each species kind of got to where they are. The Taurians are like hawks. They have those bridge, and they're more warlike kind of. They have the best fleet and everything.
Whereas the Solarians are more scientific based. Like there's
short lifespans.
They straight up say like science is our best defense.
Mass Effect feels a little more classic sci-fi type of shit to me than Star Wars with the little bit more fantasy element to it. And certainly with plenty of science fiction stuff in there. But
and the first 2 games written by Drew Karpyshyn, the KOTOR writer and the writer for the Bane trilogy.
Yeah, I would say it's more the part where I feel like it's more Star Wars injected is that the characters have first of all, I think there's a lot more humor. It's a little bit less dry than like a Star Trek. Like they'll have fake like Lethal Weapon type movies involving a big jellyfish alien and like another one, and they're playing trailers for it in the background.
This
Or
one
like
didn't read that far into the script. This
Yeah.
one does not share top billing.
Yeah. No, but it's like it injects more that I'd say it's kind of a mix of Star Trek and Star Wars, because it is even like the end of 2, which 2 is like the big game. I would say that's more like a Star Wars movie because it's very character based. You have your little tight knit crew and you're trying to pull off an impossible mission, go in and take these guys out. And then the third game gets more like esoteric kind of.
Yeah, the ending of Mass Effect 2 is a lot like that final mission in Star by Star, but like it's the version where everything goes wrong. Whereas in Mass Effect 2, you can potentially bring out everyone alive.
Yeah. Oh, I see. You're saying okay.
Yeah, I still remember the first time I played that level, and Grunt gets like swarmed by the bugs and taken away. I was like, no.
And then, of course, Miranda asks. That's sexually anything in Star Trek. But
when I first saw Miranda, I was like, I am having sex with that woman, hell or high water.
You know, I'm genetically perfect. Yes, I know.
Yes,
yeah, we can tell.
We can tell.
As far as good sci-fi goes, I would say you'd probably, it sounds like you played most of it though. And I never played Andromeda, but everybody says it sucks. But
don't play Andromeda; it's terrible.
Well, I figure we can finish off here by going back to the movies. Lore Master Chris, what's your favorite Star Wars movie?
I kind of go back and forth between Empire and Revenge of the Sith. You know, I like the darker ones where everything goes to hell, because it just makes it, when the heroes eventually win, it makes it mean so much more. I also really love Return of the Jedi, because all the stuff with Luke and Vader is amazing. Aside from that, I'd probably say my least favorite is Attack of the Clones. And yeah, there you go.
I've watched Attack of the Clones more than any other Star Wars movie.
I still remember when I was a kid, like I'm talking like 3 years old, when I couldn't get through Empire because I was so scared of Vader. When you get into the carbonite freezing chamber and he like starts attacking Luke and throws him into the carbonite pit, I just was so scared. Like, Luke, get out of there! And then he cuts off his hand, and I was like, no!
CJ, what about you? What's your favorite Star Wars movie?
I like to end on like a good ending, so probably Return of the Jedi. Just I know I'm not saying it's the best of them, like Star Wars Marvel Purity says. I think they're all 9s and 10s, but I like Return of the Jedi. Just the feel good, celebrating on the moon of Endor, just hanging out there. That was probably my favorite.
A little yub nub action.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says, but the special edition version of the Return of the Jedi ending is superior. It just is.
That one I can see the argument for. The Jedi rocks, I cannot.
Yeah.
Aside from maybe Hayden showing up as a ghost, I love everything about that updated ending. My problem with Hayden as a ghost is if he can show up as a ghost, why doesn't Obi-Wan show up as Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan instead of Alec Guinness?
It doesn't really make any sense. Other than like that's the last time Anakin was like, you could try to like come up with some bullshit hate canon. Really, they just wanted to be identifiable as Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, because I remember when I was a kid and Anakin showed up as a ghost, I thought, who is that?
Yeah. They, especially now that we've spent so much time with Anakin, they wanted to be identifiable as him, which I understand. But Borsk failure. What about you?
I would say A New Hope. I like the classic adventure. I can watch like that movie anytime, have it on in the background, pay more attention to it, watch it in theater again, whatever. It's just from the swinging across the chasm to the trench run, it's just like it just clicks right along every time, like every scene I like.
It's so damn awesome. I've seen A New Hope probably the most out of every movie. Out of all the 6 ones, I almost like know every line before they're gonna say it at this point. It's so damn good.
How are you? That still makes me laugh every time. His delivery is just perfect.
Oh, we're fine here now. Thank you.
Oh, and Robot Chicken Star Wars. I can watch that anytime.
I actually figured out who the giraffe person is in the Robot Chicken. It's like, isn't his name like Yariel Poof? the Robot Chicken alien with the long neck.
Well, thank you guys for being here and joining me on the supporter stream on the perfect day. It fell on the exact right day today, May 25th. We're going to actually talk about good Star Wars we like, which is awesome. Why don't you guys say, if you got a channel or whatever, where people can find you? Lore Master Chris, you got anything to plug?
Follow me on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter. I recently was added to United Spacers Alliance's DMs. Where the Spacers just got done watching the first 2 days of real Star Wars Celebration. So check that out. And aside from that, I don't really have much going on. Thank you for letting me on here.
Of course, as always. CJ, what about you?
Yeah, I got nothing to plug. Follow all these guys. Follow these guys here.
And Borsk Failure, also known as John Getz, who finally spelled his name right, gaming.
Well, it's actually wrong for the channel, but all right. It's phonetically.
Now people
yeah,
know what the fuck it is.
Yeah. That was the play on words I was going for from the beginning. Yeah. So yeah, John Getz Gaming, all one word. And that's we do obviously a lot of game related stuff. I'm trying, although in more relevant to this conversation, I'm putting together the Heroes Trial review, Agents of Chaos Part 1 in that duology. I'm done with the book, got all the pictures, probably edit it, try and have it out sometime early this week. So keep an eye out for that.
Sweet.
There you go. Both those links are in the description as well. So thank you guys for joining me. Again, we will be back right here next month, June, Pride Month. I'm sure everyone's excited.
Woo-hoo.
That's going to be 5 weeks away. 29th of June, almost the very end of June, is when we'll be back. But I will be live in about 2 hours over on my channel after I grab some stuff to eat and get the stream set up, all that good stuff. And then, yeah. So thank you guys for being here with me. I appreciate it. Thank you to the chat for the good Star Wars discussion. We'll be right back here next month. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right, see you later. Thank you, guys.
Ben.